At the corner of 8th and Cass Street in downtown Traverse City, you'll find the Old Town Playhouse, and this is the stage door. Hi, Don Kuehlhorn here, and this is stagedoortc for January 2014. This is our first show of the new year 2014. In here, we have some music going on in the house. Gary Bolton is testing the system. We're in the second to last night for the play, It's a Wonderful Life. And there is A Wonderful Life on stage. We're going to go backstage. Notice on stage, let me explain a little bit about what The Wonderful Life is. It's a radio play. And as a radio play, it has a radio play set, which you're seeing here. But also unique to this is that it has a Foley sound system, which Foley means that all the sound effects are produced live on stage. And here are all the tools, the soundboards, the whistles, the clapboards, the shoes that we use for walking, all sorts of items that make sound and make this It's a Wonderful Life a more believable play in a radio format. And also, later on, I'm going to take you behind the black curtain, show you what's coming up next. January, we have no auditions, so it's just a show about theater and the end of the season, the end of the 2013 year for Old Town Playhouse. This is Stage Door TC for 2013. I'm Don Kuehlhorn. Let's get started, shall we? In our show of It's a Wonderful Life, we have 5 actors who are radio actors on stage, and then we have Foley actors or Foley artists, and these are people who do live sound effects. We have John, Judy, and Natalie. And Judy, since you're right here, give us an idea of what you do as far as giving us sounds for this show.
Okay. One of the first things that happens in the show is Mr. Gower, the druggist, spills the pills because he's had a little bit too much to drink. And so we have...
So you have Good and Plenty.
Mike and candy here, right.
And you made this box?
We did. I just put some flooring in there to make it sound like wooden flooring. And that's pretty effective, especially because we have a microphone on everything.
Right. And the idea here is to try and give some sound to the play. If they're in a bar, for instance, you go to a bar. What kinds of?
And so they ask for drinks, and we rattle bottles, and I even have glass ice cubes that I can put in a glass and then pretend that we're pouring drinks, and just rattle the bars some more.
And that whole thing has a microphone, which picks up the sound and gives you a little amplification into the house.
Right.
Oh, well, and you're following a script, I see.
We are. We pay careful attention to the script, and everything is marked in here. We have 3 of us, so we know who's doing what.
Okay.
And
all right, what other kinds of sound effects do you have?
One of the fun things I have to do is when George and Mary go to the old Granholm house and throw a rock through the window.
Right.
And so that was a challenging thing to figure out. What we ended up doing is we have little cheap wind chimes in here in this box, and we throw little glass ice cubes at it, and it sort of imitates the sound of breaking glass.
Right. And then so you have some money changer. You're doing some money changing thing.
At the end, when all the townspeople come and rescue George, we pour money 6 people come and donate money, so there's that sound.
And most of these seem like they're homemade. I mean, you went home and listened to them for a while and tried to figure out sounds. Did you have to buy anything? Are there pieces that you couldn't make or you didn't want to make?
I think 2 things we had to purchase. One was a big piece of aluminum to make thunder sound, and the other was this little whistle, a cuckoo whistle.
A cuckoo whistle?
Yeah, because the cuckoo clock cuckoos 6 times when they are getting ready to close the bank and they make their payment, and so it sounds like it's pretty effective.
Yes, certainly does sound like that. All right, now you have a special effect that talks with somebody jumping into the water.
Yes, Clarence the angel jumps in the water and George jumps in after him.
Okay.
And that was a challenge because we didn't want to get the actors all wet.
Well, it's kind of hard to get them.
So we made this little contraption, and some YouTubes on the internet suggest that you plunge it into the water.
Okay.
And that is very effective, but water goes everywhere. So we put it to the bottom and pull it. And
very nice.
when I do that, the mic is on it, so the audience can hear that.
Okay. And then you slosh it around a little bit like he's...
Slosh it around, and I have to do it twice.
All right.
Yeah, it works pretty well.
Neat. That's what. And John, what about you? She was having all the fun right now. Do you do anything as much fun as that?
Judy and I both spent a lot of time looking at videos online to see how other people did this show, because it's been done quite a few times on radio. Some of the things turned out well and some of them didn't. The first sound effect that I make is when as a little boy, his brother falls through the ice, and that, just as they said, turned out pretty nicely. Take a piece of bamboo, cut it a little bit, and so that it breaks easily, and then break it over your knee. Nice sound. The sound of George being slapped in the ear by his first boss, Mr. Gower, the pharmacist, we made up by taking an old leather belt, cutting it in half, and then taping it like this so that it made that slapping sound. The similar sound effect was suggested, and this is a punch noise, just a piece of wood into a baseball glove. Now we have a number of car driving scenes, and we have an awful lot of wind noise in this program. The wind machine had been made before by Gary Bolton and was used in the tavern. Don't know what else it's been used in. And that's with the cover on, and then just have to turn the handle, and the friction against the canvas cover makes a pretty good wind noise. Fortunately, then, we could use the same thing. We had to have, for about 3 different parts of the program, we had to have a car sound, car driving up, car driving away, and so forth. One of them fairly extended. We tried, if you can imagine, flour sifters. We were going around to garage sales and picking up flour sifters. We tried a variety of things to make the car noise that we could have here on stage, and the best one we came up with was just the old, when you were a kid, putting paper clipping a card to
playing card to my spokes,
that kind of thing. So it sounded like an old car.
Yeah.
The tough one, and the biggest sound effect that I do, is many shades of door. And sometimes the door is supposed to be just opened and closed. Sometimes it's supposed to be opened and slammed. Sometimes it's a door with a holiday bell. Sometimes it's a door with a drugstore bell, just a business opening bell. The bells obviously were easy, but this door assembly Jeff Kroger built some time ago, and it had the knob and it had a latch, some other deals on here. I'm not sure what they were for, but anyway, it was hard to make good, convincing door sounds that would carry out to the audience well enough. So I did a variety of things with this. One was to add some real heavy pieces of wood onto the door to add mass, to give it more of a ka-thunk quality. And another one was I moved the latch the latch plate that the latch engages with. So if I slammed the door, it could go all the way behind the latch plate and make a more effective noise. I ran into trouble in two areas. One was getting the thing to sound like something when it opened. So this little gizmo you might recognize as being a screen door closer. This will hold a screen door closed. You open it, the thing comes open like that, and when you shut it, even if the screen door doesn't have much of a latch, this thing physically holds it shut. Well, it also provides some noise. Had to be a little inventive coming up with a way to mount it because it wasn't made for a door this thick. So we had to add these two narrow pieces of wood and mount it just so. The final part, and really tough, was coming up with creak. Now everybody's got something in their house that creaks, but we couldn't find anything we could translate to the stage, and of course we couldn't modify the door itself because the door only creaks, I think, on 3 occasions. Most of the time it doesn't. Most of the time it's a regular uncreaky door. We tried everything, including violin rosin on a piece of cotton rope wrapped around a wooden dowel and pulling it through, pulling it back and forth, and just didn't find anything. So finally we took a couple of hinges out of the wood shop, disassembled them, beat them half to death with a ball peen hammer, twisted the plates, and then as you can see how crookedly they're mounted here, really distorted them. Put the pins back in, and then everything here is in a bind. I mean, this hinge is in a bind on the pin, this is in a bind, the pieces of wood are misaligned and so forth. And so when I open that, when I move this simultaneously with actuating the door, I know it's going to make a creak.
And that's all amplified through microphones. So
Yeah.
what we hear is a large sound coming out into the house as sound effects.
Yeah, there are no electronic sounds with the exception of the siren that we borrowed from.
I notice it's really packed in there.
And it is, well, yes, because
It's awfully loud.
the siren itself is enclosed in about 1.5 feet in all directions of foam, because it would have ruined sound man Gary
Sure.
Bolton said it would have ruined the sound equipment.
Well, it was awfully
shut
loud
it
when
off.
you fired it off that first time, so I'm glad to see it. Well, John and Judy, and unfortunately Natalie didn't make it here in time. Weather is a factor for sure. There was all sorts of traffic coming in. So thank you very much, and break a leg tonight. So here's Natalie, and we are catching up with her the next day because we had snow problems yesterday when we were taping this. So Natalie, tell me about your end of the table. We had 2 sets over here, and now you have a certain set over here that you're doing. What do you do?
Well, this is my special little corner. I sit here the majority of the time. I do sound effects like the ticking of a clock, so simple things like that.
All
Alright, I'll do a telephone. Hanging up of a telephone. I do that often.
All right. One of my more favorite things is, and you kick the bucket. Well, it's not really the bucket now, is it?
Yeah.
I mean, I just love saying kick the bucket, but what you're doing is throwing a garbage can down.
I am, and this is a scene where George Bailey's Uncle Billy familiarized himself with the spirits, so he's heading home, and what I do is I just kind of run like that to simulate that he's a little tipsy, and he's trying to make his way home.
Okay. So now, tell me something. How do you keep a straight face when you do some of this stuff? I mean, here we are talking about throwing cans over. You're following and there's another thing that we'll talk about, which is your wine cork. But how do you keep a straight face?
You know, it's a little hard sometimes, but I just imagine myself, because we're supposed to be at a radio show, so nobody's technically supposed to see me, and I know the audience gets a kick out of some of the sound effects, and I do too. It's a lot of fun. I'm really happy I got involved with this.
All right, so let's see some more. How about this homemade thing? Now, some of these are all products. Your tick-tock is an actual sound, a percussion instrument.
Right.
Your ringing the bell is a car.
Mm-hmm. Oh, the car.
I mean,
yes,
not a car, but you're honking the horn. You see that, but your telephone is a ringy-dingy on a bell ringer.
Yeah.
But you made this thing on the DIY, do your own, DIY, whatever that is.
Yeah,
All right, and this is one of the funner things.
This is actually, we found this upstairs in the storage room. I'm actually not sure who made it, but it was perfect for opening a bottle of wine.
Okay.
People just get a kick out of that.
That is a cutie. The audience loves it.
I love it too.
Okay, now a couple of more things before we go here. You're walking. This is a thing that almost every Foley person or every person listening to a radio play or something hears,
Right.
and this is what the Foley artist is basically known for. First of all, how about walking in the snow?
Oh, walking in the snow.
We know we have one thing, and it used to be cornstarch, right?
Right, cornstarch, but after about 2 uses of scrunching cornstarch, it gets looser, so
Yeah.
you lose the sound effect. So we took like this, I'm not sure, it looks like kitty litter to me, but you just make the sound with, I don't know what this is.
Piece of board.
Yeah. So that simulates walking in the snow.
You're walking in the snow to me. And then last, but certainly not least, just regular walking on the floor.
Right. Right. Things
You
like
and your
that.
wingtips. Natalie, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, here we go behind the black curtain to the construction of a Games Afoot set. This is early in construction, but I just wanted to show you what it looks like, what they're doing back here. So when you come see the show, you'll see that you'll see it fully dressed up. The Art Deco bookcase here. Notice there's something special on the floor. Let me pan down here again. You can see that arrow. It says only. Well, this is a spinning door, and it turns around, revolves to make this Art Deco bar in the back. It's quite effective, quite interesting. You know it before the show goes up. You've seen it here in Stage Door TC. Also, it's not quite painted yet. You can see some of the flats that we have around here, some doorways. A set of jealousy doors. Now we're going to go in someplace that we normally don't go. Backstage. Here's the hallway to the green room and backstage area. We're going to take the first door on the right into the wood room. This is where we constructed all of the set pieces, and here's one of the set pieces here, a fireplace. Notice the Art Deco look once again on the sides, and those medallions coming down. Medallions, like that big word? It's a wonderful look at what we have. Now this will be painted. It's all out of plywood. Across from it is a poly fireplace. I believe this is the example that they decided to use to give the rough dimensions. And now we're going to go further backstage. We'll go all the way back to the properties room, or sometimes we call it the setup room. We'll be going up the hallway. Now be quiet here. Don't get caught. Quick, no one's looking. Turn on the light, and now you can see some more things. Some sort of this couldn't be a staircase because it's too light. We need 2x4s to hold people. But it's going to be some sort of thing on the stage. We also have this big urn back here, or vase, whatever. That should be on stage somewhere. We have these dividers that you see here. These are all the things that you have. Now, before we're caught, we get out of here. We'll run down the hallway. You've seen some stuff behind the scenes. Don't tell anybody. It's our little secret. And here during our last show of the 2013 year, or the beginning of the 2014, we have a year in review, and our first show up was Over the River, and this is the first one of 2013. It was when a grandson wants to leave his grandparents, family ties get strained. It was a love story. We had, maybe 15 volunteers in this cast and crew. Certainly 15, maybe a little more. In our first studio show of 2013, we did The Little Dog Laughed. Now, studio shows have small casts and very simple sets. As you can see, this set consisted of one bedroom. We managed to involve 11 volunteers in this particular play. Now, back to main stage in March for Legally Blonde, the musical. This one had many players and many scenes. We used over 30 volunteers in this particular play. Our last show for the 2012-2013 season was The Pillow Man, a psychological drama. Had a single set, had a small cast. It was a really good show. We had, 5 actors on stage, but we had as many or more backstage for 10 to 12 volunteers in this one. Then we went to Ideal Husband, our last show of the 2012-2013 season in May. It is an Oscar Wilde favorite, 2 sets and many, many costumes. We had a lot of needlework here, so we may have lost a lot of names of some of the volunteers who helped us sew up this show. 23 plus in volunteers on this one. Our first show of the 2013-2014 season on main stage in October was Les Miserables. We extended the performances because it was so well attended. This had many, many scenes, many, many costumes, 55 in the cast, and 25 in the orchestra with many volunteers in the background. I'm going to say it was 55 plus, because that's what I count in one of the cast photos, but it was more like 100 volunteers when you get said and done with all the hammerers and nailers and sewers and seamstresses and props people and so forth. And our last studio show of the calendar year 2013 was The Dining Room. We had 18 scenes, 30-some characters, and played all these 30 plus characters played by 7 actors. And then we had as many backstage, 7, maybe more. I'm showing 13 backstage. We probably had more than that.
If others have, it slowly goes by.
And our last show of the 2013 calendar year was It's a Wonderful Life, the radio play. Here, we had one single set on the thrust of the stage. We had 5 radio actors, but we had something new for the Playhouse. We had live sound effects with 3 Foley actors, as we call live sound effects, and a pianist. This theater stuff, it is a wonderful life. Add in the 8 backstage, and you have 15, 17 or more volunteers in this show. If you total what I displayed, we would have 162 plus volunteers. Now, some of us work multiple shows, but then we don't get an accurate count because some people just come in for 1 or 2 little things. If you want to be part of this fun, we have a place for you. There is much to be had at the Old Town Playhouse for the remainder of the 2013-2014 season, either as a viewer, spectator, or as a participant. First up would be Good on Paper. That's our improv group that meets every other Saturday. The performances now will be January 11th and January 25th. The doors open at 10:30 p.m. They have free coffee and sticky buns. Age to Perfection, our senior readers group, meets every Saturday at 10 a.m. If you like reading poems, plays, and short stories, this is the place for you, downstairs in the Schmuckel Theater at the Playhouse. Of course, our young company continues to offer classes for youths from 5 to 17 years old. Auditions for Treasure Island, which is our next main stage, will be held in March. Stay tuned for more information on that. On main stage in January, opening January 17th, is the comedy The Game's Afoot, a Ken Ludwig slapstick comedy. Venus and Fur in February, a 2-person drama, opens at the Depot Studio Theater. Hot on the heels of the television performance, we present The Sound of Music on our main stage in March. April Showers brings us Steady Rain in the Depot Studio Theater. A Chicago cop does something bad. He thinks. The comedy about women in a hair salon will get you laughing in May. Our last presentation of the 2013-14 season is the Studio Theater Leaving Iowa. Ever take a road trip with your kids? This is the play about that. Now, the bookkeeping to close our show. The music for this show is brought to you by Creative Commons Music. For current times and dates of all of the performances at the Playhouse, see the official website at oldtownplayhouse.com. One word, oldtownplayhouse.com. Do you have questions, comments, suggestions about the show or any of the Stage Door TC shows? Well, send us an email to stagedoortc@gmail.com. I'm Don Kuehlhorn. Have a happy and great new year.